Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Table for Two, the podcast powered by Scale Partner AI, where we dive into real stories, real challenges, and real breakthroughs happening where business and technology meet. I'm really excited for today's episode because we've got John LiCausi with us, the founder of Internet Marketing Experience, a Chicago-based agency that's been helping businesses grow online for over 17 years. John, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Let's start from the beginning. You built Internet Marketing Experience from scratch and have been at it for 17 years. What originally inspired you to get into this space, and what's kept you motivated through all the ups and downs?
Sure. I got a business degree from Rockford College at the time. Now it's called Rockford University. And so the marketing expertise started back in year 2000 to 2004, which is when I was in college. And then, of course, after graduation, life kind of took me away. Was doing some retail management at a store that we both have heard of called Toys R Us. Even did sold some office equipment. I mean, just did this whole like little cycle of
Mhm.
experience in other areas other than marketing. It was when I actually landed at a job back at the college I graduated from, just kind of hitting the reset button. I was working as an admission counselor there. And I started to investigate with websites for basically hobbyist types of things, such as boating.
Mhm. Huh.
And while playing with websites for boating, I actually found my way to a seminar in Madison, Wisconsin, which had many like expert marketers that were presenting, talking about what they're doing in the business. Of course, they were selling info products at the time as well. So I went to that and I connected with a marketer there by the name of Brian Kaz. And Brian Kaz and I kept in touch. It was just a by chance coincidence that I was able to talk to anybody there, like on a one-on-one basis. It
Mhm.
was an elevator type of scenario, kind of feel like I was meant to be there, to have that moment where I was able
Mhm.
to connect with him. And it was just through a compliment, right? So I complimented him in the elevator about how great his presentation was. And then we kept in touch after that. And he ended up hiring me as a project manager to hire his web marketing business, basically like the support aspects of it, right? So I had a headset on. I was using Skype at the time to talk to everybody all over the US or possibly even overseas. There were a few people too. So I did that for probably a couple years. Lots of email flow, lots of conversations with people about online marketing. So little did I realize that my dabblings as I'm doing websites for hobby, related interests turned into doing website design, web marketing for people that are in business.
Mhm.
So his client base was more entrepreneurial. But after a couple years of helping him out, I started to get some local notoriety for what I was doing, and I ended up getting some interest from some local businesses that were like, "Hey, can you design our website?" Now, keep in mind this was in 2008, so
Mhm.
there weren't as many web designers around every corner as there are right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So, uh, it was a little easier, I think, to kind of jump in and get some
Mhm.
interest as the new kid on the block. Whereas I think now would be a little more challenging, but that's what we did. So we were able to get one business, made them happy, built them a website, did some SEO, took that testimonial to the next business prospect, made them
Yeah.
happy with our deliverables, got a testimonial. Then to the third person, we took two testimonials, said, "Hey, we made the other two people happy. Will you give us a shot too?" And we literally kept doing that, at least in the first year or so there to get off the ground. And then here we are 17 years later, still at it.
Wow. That's great. Building an agency that lasted 2 decades says a lot about resilience,
Yeah.
especially in an industry that moves so fast. So you've seen a lot of change in how clients think about
hmm
websites,
hmm
SEO, and marketing. What's
hmm
been the biggest shift you've noticed in terms of what clients expect or value today?
Yeah. Um, well, I look at it through my own binoculars, right? There are other web designers that will have, like a different feel on this based on what they've seen in the industry. But we kind of break the traditional mold a little bit when it comes to having a web agency because from my perspective, most people in this space start out as either like a graphic designer, somebody in the creative space, or a
Hmm.
coder. Personally, I'm neither. I'm neither one of them. I mean, I can be a creative, but I'm kind of forcing that shoe on my foot. I've got people on my team that are creatives that assist mostly with our projects. But what gives me a unique perspective is I look at everything from a business aspect, right? Because my emphasis in college and obviously, through my experience was business and business marketing. So I look at everything from generating leads and revenue, even more so than just, does this look pretty, right?
Mhm.
So that kind of gives us a little bit of a performance angle when it comes to our websites and our web marketing programs, rather than just aesthetically pleasing, which obviously we want to check that box too, but we are more of a performance based web marketing agency. So, how things have kind of shifted, going back to your question, I would say that, through all the Super Bowl commercials, for some of the larger web design platforms out there, through all of the AI conversations and, can AI do this? Can AI do everything there for you, right?
Mhm.
For a $20 a month chat GPT subscription. And then, of course, with the abundance of people that have entered into the web marketing, web design space that are offering services through phone calls, through contact form spam, through cold calls, cold emails, you get the hint. In my opinion, I think it's kind of watered down the expertise
Mm.
in my market.
Mm.
So what do I mean by that? Well, it kind of means like when we talk to a new prospect, they're less focused on the expertise per se, and they're more almost focused on the price,
Mm.
regardless of whether or not the deliverable will actually be better performance wise, because they just don't quite believe that there can be that much of a difference from one person to the other. Sure, in customer service, yes, right? A lot of people have been burned by other web designers. There could be a difference in customer service level, but the difference in the actual expertise sometimes is hard to get people to understand if they're a prospect looking to do business with us. So that's probably been one of the most monumental changes I've seen, is that we're having to work a little extra harder to distinguish ourselves as experts in our business versus some of the other options out there, such as large marketing, businesses with sales reps, et cetera, that are all just in it for profit. Now, when it comes to us, the buck stops with us, but the buck stops with me. If something goes wrong, I have to answer for it. If something goes
Mhm.
wrong with a large business, sales reps can blame it on 2 or 3 tiers away that might be in another state, and then ultimately they don't answer for the problem either. So it's just a little
Mhm.
bit different to work with a niche web agency like Internet Marketing Experience versus some of the other options out there. And of course, the industry's kind of served that to us.
Yeah.
We've had to modify how we do things, modify our process and how we talk to customers to try to accentuate that as much as possible about how we are different.
Mhm. I think that's an important point that you made there, John. To sum it all up is accountability. And so I see that all the time too. People want the outcome, but they don't always realize that the real magic happens in the small details that they never ever see, is in which you and your team does. At Scale
Absolutely.
Partner AI, part of what we do help uncover those gaps where a little bit of behind the scenes automation or system support can make a huge difference in client results. So switching gears a little, operationally, you mentioned that managing the sheer volume of emails and inbound communications has always been a challenge. And on top of that, the phone system issues, robocalls, spam, and making real connections harder have added a layer of friction. So, what solutions have you tried so far, and where do you feel there's still room for a better approach?
Sure. So yeah, the communication system, at least in the United States, has definitely been flipped on its butt in the last 10
Yeah.
years, 15 years, to say the very least, because with all of this, the spam and scams out there through phone calls and text messages, our prospects really don't answer the phone very much anymore unless you're pre-programmed in as a contact.
Mm.
And on our end, admittedly, I don't really like answering the phone either when I don't recognize the number, because it's like a 99.99% chance that it's a junk call.
Mhm.
And so the solution that I've tried in the past for that was RoboKiller. And RoboKiller, I can't say much about their technology. They talked a little bit about it a few years ago, and I'm sure there's still some information out there now if people want to hear about it. But I believe that was more of a database type of operation to be able to weed out the robocalls that that actually make it through to your phone line, as opposed to like an AI type of component that weeds out.
Right.
Maybe that's changed over the years. I mean, with AI,
Mhm.
maybe RoboKiller has changed. But what I noticed was is that the effectiveness of RoboKiller was kind of fun in the beginning because there was really nothing. And I'm going back like 4 or 5 years here, maybe when it first came out. But it did actually help a little bit in the beginning. And it also allowed you to have a little fun too with the spammer. You could give them like a custom response, and it was almost a game to see how long you could keep the spammer on the phone with your little recording per se. But
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen or looked into that, but it was actually kind of cool. But the problem is the effectiveness of that started to wear off as the phone spammers and call centers started to work their way around that.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, I actually canceled that recently, and it wasn't a big investment to keep it.
Yeah.
They were increasing their price at the time, but I just thought for the price increase, I thought I'd rather not use it. And plus, there were also
Mhm.
some scenarios that made it kind of difficult to have it as well because actual legitimate people would get, redirected into the whole robo killer, your phone calls being verified message. Can you state who
Mm.
you are? It kind of gave us a little bit of a perceived value in the wrong direction. So I wanted to get rid of that. You know what I mean, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like RoboKiller is good for personal phones, but for businesses, it just causes problems, like you mentioned. It blocks legit customers trying to reach you. It potentially could be too aggressive, so it's not customizable enough for real businesses' needs, and it doesn't separate spam from real potential clients professionally. So now you're getting into this conversation of like, okay, so what is a legit customer versus spam or RoboKiller? And like you mentioned, I too don't answer numbers that don't have my contact embedded into it. And so usually it's spam or I just direct them to voicemail. And if they go to voicemail and support it, they will leave a voice message. And so I can understand the frustration that this can cause. So it's probably a good idea for you to cancel it the way you did before hikes just hiked up.
Yep. And then sometimes it would somebody would leave a message in RoboKiller voicemail, and sometimes it would be on my phone voicemail. I mean, it just
Mm.
was. It became extra legwork
Yeah.
to have it.
Having managing both. Yeah.
We already have to check, all of our social media accounts for messages, and everywhere else. It's like, you know what? Checking multiple voicemails now. I don't know about that.
It's just another layer from your social media and the rest of your
Yeah.
communication tools that you have.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, but to summarize that through, Sarah, and you said it very eloquently, I think RoboKiller is more for personal, not for business. And I was trying to, I was trying to put a business, I was trying to apply it to our company,
Yeah.
and I couldn't quite get it to work out. I would
Mhm.
love to see AI help us regain control
Mm.
of phones in this country. I would love to see
Mm.
it happen. I would love for there to be a monumental shift to be able to catch and stall these call centers that are just so aggressive in this country as well as overseas that are just targeting
Mhm.
us on a daily basis.
You actually transition into my next question actually. So technology is supposed to make it easier, but sometimes it just adds another level of frustration, which is what we talked about. So what's worked for you so far when it comes to managing all the inbound noise, and where do you feel like there's still a big gap?
Yeah. Well, it's been a manual process at the moment.
Mm.
We use Google Workspace for our email accounts, and I'm able to have it through Google Workspace. I'm able to have team members of mine be able to access my main customer email account to be able to help manage the flow that comes into that. So if I'm on vacation or I'm going to be out for a day or even a half day, I can ask my team members to help manage that flow on my behalf. And they're pretty seasoned and tenured with how to manage it. And so sometimes somebody will receive an email from John LiCausi's email, but it'll be signed Kristen
Mm.
instead of John, and say, hey, John's out of the office today, but I'll let him know and we'll get this done, something like that, and then sign it Kristen,
Which one am I
but
talking
yeah.
to? John or Kristen? Which one is
Yeah.
it?
Well, yeah. But the redundancy is important, right? I mean, we've got multiple levels of redundancy when it comes to hosting,
Mm-hmm.
and backups. Why wouldn't we have redundancy when it comes to email flow? You know,
Mm.
God forbid I was in some sort of car accident, I was in the hospital, I would need to have somebody would need to be able to access the business email account, the primary one,
Right.
of course, or the
Mm-hmm.
business is down. We wouldn't want that. So
Mm,
that's really important. I think a lot of niche web agencies kind of forget about that at the end of the
yeah.
day. They just take their own health and their ability to run their business for granted, whereas we do think about that. If
Hmm.
something were to happen to myself as the main business owner operator, could the team manage it without me if I just disappeared without notice for 2 or 3 days or something like that?
Mm.
And we have made it so that we can do that.
Yeah, for sure. It's the operational weight that sneaks up on you, right? Like you mentioned, a lot of the niche boutique agencies don't think about the little things in your day-to-day operation. So it's really important to able to have a type of tool to help ease the flow of your operations, not to create more frustrations, not to add another head count to do much of the legwork for you, but take some of the invisible load off of the founder's plate so they can actually scale without
Yeah,
burning you out.
right.
So what's worked for you so far when it comes to the inbound noise? I know that working through your Google Workspace, and you mentioned the challenges that you're facing. If you could design your dream communication setup, something that actually filtered out junk but kept real opportunities, what would that look like and what would it need to do?
Well, I think Google might be working in that direction right now, but I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to see a custom solution come around sooner than that because obviously they're trying to launch it for all of their users. Whereas if it was a smaller solution that was built for somebody like myself as the owner of an agency, that could bolt on rather quickly versus waiting for Gemini to catch up. But I know Gemini has made some strides to be able to help people with their inbound noise, but it's not like really perfect yet. It's getting there in
Mm-hmm.
my opinion, but and I admittedly I haven't used every feature of it yet. So ideally dream communication system, possibly there was some sort of AI component that could be bolted on through the telephone and through the email to help sort out noise that's not necessary. Maybe even maybe there would be like a separate box. I mean, I know there's already a couple of different boxes in Google where it's like, okay, here's your normal inbox, and then
Mm-hmm.
here's your, I shouldn't say spam box, but what do they label that tab? The promo tab, right?
Mm. Yeah.
But even that, I'm not a true fan of that because I like to see things in one.
Inbox.
If there could be an AI powered component helping us weed out some of that stuff at the very top, that would come in real handy. And I mean, geez, if I could eliminate all of even if I don't answer the phone, Sarah, just
Mm-hmm.
a spammer calling me, then connects to my computer, right? And it disrupts
Yeah.
the email I'm typing. So I literally have to maybe there's a feature I can turn that off with, but it's just these little things. Every time that comes through,
Disruption.
it disrupts me, even if I'm not
Uh-huh.
talking to the person. So if
Uh-huh.
I was to be able to get rid of all of that, we're talking probably at least, you know, couple hours a week just in recovery of disruptions and whatnot and that's not including when I might answer it thinking that it could be legitimate, and then that's obviously more time. As far as spam emails
Huge.
coming through that are actually making it into the inbox, those are avidly increasing right now at a escalated rate. I think a lot of it's coming through LinkedIn because LinkedIn's becoming this big Rolodex for businesses to be able to do cold email, and that can be
Uh-huh.
good and bad, I suppose. But it seems like every day I'm adding more people to the my filter list inside of Google, where it's like, okay, block this person if they
Block.
send any more emails, right? Because I know the game, Sarah, right? They want you to type in reply unsubscribe. I know
Yeah.
as well as I do when I do that. Now I'm basically whitelisting them in my inbox because I'm responding to them, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that's a huge one, John. And the middle ground is where you can trust the real opportunities that aren't slipping through, but you're not drowning in junk. And so it's something we focus a lot on Scale Partner AI, actually. It's about smarter filtering and building workflows that work behind the scenes without you having to constantly babysit them, like you mentioned. So, John, if you could go back and talk to yourself 17 years ago, I'm sure there's a lot you would want to say. What is one thing you wish you had known earlier in the journey, especially when it comes to running or growing a service-based business?
What's one thing I
One thing you would tell yourself, or two? or many, whatever you would like to share when it
Yeah.
comes to running or growing your business.
What's one thing I would tell myself? Work smarter, not harder.
Mm,
In the early days, I worked, I mean, not to say I don't work my tail off now, but back in the earlier days, I was really working in that grind
mm,
because I wasn't married yet. I didn't have a child like I do now.
mm,
And so I had the ability to just focus 100% on what was in front of me. And so I would work 12 to 15 hours a day, still find a little time to have some fun in there and go out and have fun because I was in my late 20s. But
mhm,
um, as the business has evolved, as time has evolved, I've learned a little bit more. I invest a lot of time into my own development from a personal level and business development level. I'm in business
mm.
coaching.
That's great.
And I've been doing a lot of meditational stuff recently too on the personal side. And so
That's
that stuff
important.
can, yeah, to be able to talk to your subconscious mind, maybe that's part of it too. Maybe that's a bullet point underneath. I would really like to have told myself back in the day to,
Mm,
pay attention to your subconscious mind as well, not just what's right in front of you on a normal basis, right? I probably didn't take the time to really slow down to be able to look at things that way. And I was just go, 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 go. I got to be successful. I got to be successful, like any
mm,
driven entrepreneur would be. But by
yeah.
being in that grind, things do get put in the blinders. So,
Mm.
gosh, that's
I
probably
think
what I would say.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a lot,
Yeah.
not only founders and entrepreneurs in this area, but everyone in this space. It's just a reminder of taking the time to step back, not only acknowledging and appreciating all that, all the work that you've done, but also just taking a breather and focusing on yourself. Because especially nowadays with everything that's going on, you want to be able to step back, take that breather, and just bring yourself back.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
yourself grounded. So I
Right.
think that's really important. That's one thing that I feel like people sometimes miss when you're building your own agency, you're building your own business, and you're in the grind. Like you said, it's just sometimes hard to take those little open pockets of opportunities, go outside and get some fresh air and see the light, smell the pollen.
Yeah, I did do that, but it wasn't until probably year number 3 though that I actually started continuing my like the business education
Mm,
that I was using on a daily basis, right? Because you only learn so much in college
yeah.
about how to run a business. I mean, there's a course for it at Rockford University called Senior STEM that you kind of run in your own business,
Mm,
and different inputs produce different outputs, and you were trying to keep this business afloat. I'm sure it's advanced quite a ways today than it was in
mm-hmm,
2004, but like you only learn so much,
yeah.
and it's a constant. You have to constantly evolve yourself, constantly evolve your
Mm-hmm,
business. It sounds cliched, it really isn't though. And so I think what's kind of kept us in business this long is the ability to be able to move on the fly like that, be able to change how we're doing things. AI, come on, Sarah, AI was a pretty scary concept for anybody in our space going
yeah.
back just a little ways.
Mm-hmm,
And there was that process of getting to the point where AI was not scary and we were able to look at opportunities. It took a
mm-hmm,
minute. I have friends in my network that remember when I was like, "Oh, AI, I don't mess with that," right?
yeah. Yeah.
That's scary. I can't look at that. No, that can do some of the things that we're doing, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm,
And then kind of a switch was flipped and all of a sudden
mm-hmm,
we're leveraging it. It's not everybody is able to do that. Not
yeah.
everybody's that flexible. Having that level of flexibility can definitely equate to longevity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it feels like change isn't slowing down anytime soon,
Yeah.
right? If anything, it's speeding up.
Yeah.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities or even challenges for agencies like yours over the next few years?
Well, I think AI is going to throw us some curveballs. That would be I know you're Scale Partner AI founder, right? And I know this is kind
Mm-hmm,
of an AI conversation, but if this
mm-hmm,
wasn't an AI focused conversation, I would still put that as the number one. You know,
100%.
we're going to have to find ways to deliver value where
Yeah.
AI can't. It's still doable. It is doable. It may be a little different, and we may do more consulting rather than actual execution. You know, what do you mean by that? Well, Instead of saying like, okay, hey, give us X amount of money, we'll design your website. Instead, it might be go ahead and design your website
Uh,
using whatever platform or tools you're using, or whatever, entry level developer is your neighbor or friend of a friend. You know what I mean, right? There's just everybody is in web, right? Use them and then come to us for high level consulting to look at what you've got. And then we can give you like an itemized list of improvements that you could make to your website in order to prove the performance without us actually having to manage it or host it. So the traditional model for agencies is we need to have your website, we got to host it, we have to control it for you, we have to be the one responsible for everything. We can still do that, right? But I think in the future we may have to be more lenient with that. We're going to have to be able to work with people that are not necessarily willing to give us the whole enchilada per se in regards to their web presence. And we've already started to do that. We have, but the challenge that we have when we offer high level consulting like that, not to say it won't work, because it does work. Sometimes it's little tweaks to a web design that can make a huge difference with conversions for new leads. But when we have tried to do that, though, people are not used to investing into their website for high level consulting only.
mm,
So it's like, well, wait a minute. You're not doing any web work. You're not actually doing any execution for the changes, but you're just going to tell us what to do. From an industry perspective, that's 100% valid. Yes, we could definitely pay for ourselves times 2, 3, 4x the deliverable, right? But they're not used to paying for that level of expertise with web because, like I brought up in the beginning of this conversation, the bigger world out there has convinced them that you can do it yourself using Wix, Squarespace, GoDaddy. Let's just name them, right? So we're fighting all of that as web agencies as time goes on. AI is going to further increase that issue for us, and we're just going to have to be able to adapt. No
mhm,
doubt about it. And we already
mhm.
are. Believe it or
Yeah,
not, we're doing things differently today than we did just a few years ago, and we just have to be able to make it more profitable on our end as well. And then I think
yeah,
it'll last. I really
yeah.
do.
No, absolutely. That's the shifts, right? That you're already playing and that you're keeping an eye on.
Well, Sarah, I think some agencies are planning their exit strategy.
Mm.
We're not planning the exit strategy.
You're here to stay.
We are not. We are not planning our exit strategy. In fact, I think we're just still at 17 years in. I still think we're getting warmed up.
Oh, that's great. And it's exciting, but also overwhelming, right? We're here to not chase trends, but to help businesses get ahead of them by building a solid foundation so they could keep building on. I think that's a really important point that you just made there, John. So before we wrap up, where can people find you and learn more about internet marketing experience?
So absolutely. So yes, people can find me on LinkedIn, / John LiCausi. And they can also find us on our website, internetmarketingexperience.com. And those would probably be the top two places. And if they want to keep in touch, I'll have a newsletter option on the website as well, internetmarketingexperience.com, to be able to opt in and just kind of keep in touch through email as well.
Perfect. Thanks again for joining us. And to everyone listening, if you're navigating the challenges of scaling smarter in today's world, stay tuned for more real conversations here on Table for Two, powered by Skill Partner AI.